Here's a real thing that happens. Someone turns 55, opens their 401k for the first time in 2 years, sees a number that doesn't match the life they pictured, and closes the laptop. Not because they don't care. Because every piece of financial advice they've ever seen was written for someone with 40 years left, not 10. The math didn't work, so they stopped looking at the math. That's not a savings problem. That's a content problem. And it's the entire reason I built this channel. My name is Frank. Welcome to Frank Retires. Let me tell you who I am, because I think it matters before you decide whether to stick around. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have letters after my name. I'm not going to show you my face, because honestly, you don't need to see my face to hear what I have to say. What you need is someone willing to say the part everyone else skips. Here's the part everyone else skips. Almost every personal finance channel on this platform is built for someone in their 20s or 30s. Start an index fund. Let it compound for 40 years. Retire a millionaire. Great advice if you have 40 years. You don't. I don't. Most of the people watching this don't. We have 10, maybe 15 if we're lucky and healthy. And nobody, not one channel I could find, was talking directly to the person standing exactly where you're standing. Behind, but not done. Worried, but not finished. So that's the gap I'm here to close. I want to explain why the gap exists, because I think it'll change how you think about your own situation. We spent years in school learning things most of us never touched again. I could still probably name the parts of a cell. I know roughly what the Treaty of Versailles was. But nobody, not once, sat me down and explained what happens to a retirement account in the 10 years before you actually retire. Nobody explained that the order you withdraw money in matters almost as much as how much you saved. Nobody explained that the decade between 55 and 65 is doing more work, for better or worse, than the 30 years before it. We hand people 401k paperwork and Social Security forms and tell them good luck. Then we act surprised when half of them get to 63 and realize the runway is shorter than they thought. That's not your fault. That's a design flaw. And design flaws can be worked around if somebody finally points at them. Here's what this channel is not going to do. I'm not going to tell you that the reason you're behind is the lattes you bought in 2019. That kind of advice treats a symptom, while the actual problem runs wild in the background. I'm also not going to do the opposite. I'm not going to tell you it's hopeless, that you should have started decades ago, that the window's closed. Because it isn't. It's just smaller than it used to be, and a smaller window changes the strategy. It doesn't cancel the game. Let me show you exactly what I mean, because I think a real number does more than a promise ever could. Picture two people. Both 55. Both have $120,000 saved. Person one keeps doing what they've been doing, saving a little, not really tracking it, hoping it works out. Person two does one specific thing differently. They redirect $500 a month, one car payment, basically, into their retirement account for the next 10 years. And they use something called catch-up contributions, extra room the IRS specifically builds into retirement accounts once you turn 50. Almost nobody our age actually uses it. Here's what that $500 a month actually does over 10 years, using a realistic average return. It adds about $87,000. That's $87,000 more than person one ends up with. That's not life-changing the way a lottery ticket is life-changing. It's life-changing the way a working me is life-changing. It's the difference between retiring on your terms at 65 or still working at 70 because the math made the choice for you. Here's the part that matters most. Person one isn't lazy. Person one isn't bad with money. Person one just never sat down and ran the actual numbers for someone their age, because every calculator, every rule of thumb, Every video they ever watched assumed they had 40 years, not 10. When you run the math on the wrong timeline, of course it feels hopeless. You're solving the wrong problem. That's what we fix here. Not someday. Starting now. Let me give you a preview of where we're headed, because I want you to know exactly what you're signing up for. We're going to talk about why the standard 4% withdrawal rule needs a different conversation when you're 58 instead of 35. We're going to talk about Social Security timing. Claiming at 62 versus waiting until 70. That decision is often worth more than any stock pick you'll ever make. And almost nobody walks people through the real math on it. We're going to talk about the traps specific to this exact decade, the house equity that feels like savings but isn't, the adult kid still on the payroll, the mortgage that won't be paid off by the time you retire at the pace you're going. And we're going to talk about the psychological side too. Who you are when the job that's defined you for 30 years isn't there anymore. That part doesn't get discussed enough either, and it matters just as much as the spreadsheet. I want to be honest about something else, the same way I'd want someone being honest with me. This channel isn't going to make you feel good by telling you everything's fine if it isn't. And it's not going to tell you the window already closed either. Both of those are easier to sell than the truth. The truth is in between, and the truth is actually more useful than either extreme, because the truth is something you can act on. Here's the thing I want you to walk away with today. Building enough to retire on your terms at this stage of life isn't about being smart. It's not about timing the market or finding some secret stock. It's about understanding the handful of rules that apply specifically to the decade you're standing in right now, and being willing to act on them, while everyone else is either panicking or pretending it's fine. That's the whole game at this stage. The people who land where they want to land at 65 aren't the ones who started earliest. Some of them are the ones who simply stopped avoiding the math at 55 instead of 75. My job is to be the person who finally points at the math, not gently dancing around it, and not making it worse than it is either. Just straight. So if you're tired of financial advice that assumes you're 28, or content that makes you feel like the window already closed, you're in the right place. Subscribe, stick around, and I'll see you in the first real video where we're going to run the actual numbers on the decade that matters more than any other. Let's get to work.